let me introduce myself. My name is Weston Marume. I'm a PhD student, first year in global governance and human security. I'm from Zimbabwe, and my co-presenter here.
Good evening. I don't think I need to introduce myself again, as I have been with you all during the day. But I'm also from Zimbabwe, by the way, if I didn't mention that earlier. So as we proceed with the event, my colleague here is going to introduce the person who will introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, so as Zimbabweans, we are taking it over. Allow me to introduce Professor Bano. He is Assistant Professor, College of Education and Human Development. He is going to introduce our speaker for the evening. You're welcome, Professor.
Hello. Thank you for the great introduction. So, I've been given the honor of introducing our speaker today. And I'm just going to read his bio and say a couple wonderful things about him and let him take it away. Again, my name is Bodurin Banwo. I'm assistant professor in the College of Education. Dr. Gilles Yabi is the founder and CEO of WATHI, the West African Citizen Think Tank, which launched in 2015. WATHI is a participatory and multidisciplinary, citizen-focused think tank. Giles worked as West African Project Director for International Crisis Group, holding a PhD in Development and Economics from the University of Clermont-Ferrand in France. Giles also worked as a journalist for the magazine, and please forgive my French, Jeunes Afrique in Paris. He ensures strong media presence for WATHI, namely through the weekly column, C'est Frère de Bois, WATHI, on Radio France Internationale. Giles is also a non-resident scholar at the African program of the US-based Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. So if we could give a strong Africa Day welcome to our guest speaker. Hello, Dr. Awati. Welcome. We just want to say welcome to Africa Day at UMass, and we're all here waiting to hear your wonderful words. You can take it away.
Thank you very much. Again, I do hope that we'll be lucky enough to have a good internet connection from my side here in Senegal. I'm speaking from Dakar. I can't see the entire room, but my greetings to every one of you. It's a pleasure to be part of this Africa Day conference, and thanks for the invitation. I will forgive your French, but I think you will need also to forgive my English, especially at the end of the day. I'm based in Senegal. I'm a citizen of Benin, so usually I speak definitely more in French than in English, and I've not been lucky enough to study in a U.S. university. But I'm sure that we'll be able to cover a few things about the state of democracy in Africa, and I will be focusing on West Africa as the moderator just introduced me. I'm the founder and director of WATHI, West Africa Citizen Think Tank, and working mostly on West African issues, not only on political and security issues, but also on economic, social issues. We believe that it is important to connect all the issues together, and that is the identity of the think tank that that we created a few years ago after working for a number of years for the International Crisis Group on Conflict Prevention through analysis and recommendations. So thank you again for this invitation, and I hope that we'll be able to cover a few issues in the situation, which is quite complex now in the region. I know that you have had a number of conferences, panels, discussions since the morning, so I guess that you are quite tired. So I will try to keep you awake, which is going to be a challenge with a topic which is not a very easy one. So I will try to share my screen. I hope that it will work properly, and please let me know if there is a technical problem and you can hear me or you can see the slides. So what I will try to do is to speak a little bit about the Sahel and then about Senegal, also with a view of maybe starting with the part of the region where we do have more problem with democracy, but also with security and stability. So I will start with Israel, and then I will end with a more positive note about the recent presidential election in Senegal and what kind of lessons that we can draw from this experience. Of course, on the Sahel, I mean Central Sahel, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, especially three important countries in West Africa. As you know, the situation has been quite difficult in terms of security and political instability in the last few years. I will be speaking a little bit about the security situation because I think that we cannot talk about the state of democracy on the continent or in specific countries of the continent without actually looking at all the over dimensions of which make the well-being of people. So we cannot talk about democracy without talking about conflict and insecurity and violence. And we'll see that this has an important impact also on the possibility for democratization to be entrenched in countries. In terms of insecurity, it is more difficult also to cultivate democracy and to make progress. So over the past decade, terrorist type violence embodied by changing armed groups has added to existing form of violence and insecurity in the region, in the Sahel, but also in the Lake Chad Basin and in the neighborhoods, including in the northern part of some coastal countries of West Africa. And insecurity and governance failures definitely created conditions for political instability and the return of coup d'etat and military regimes in the region. Talking about Sahel, extremely difficult in a few minutes given the complexity of the situation. And I do believe that the better words maybe to characterize the state of a region is insecurity, complexity, and uncertainty. Because we have a conjunction of factors, of elements that make the situation extremely complex and difficult to actually apprehend. We have a proliferation of armed groups. That has been the case since the start of the crisis in Mali in 2012. Okay, I think there are just very clear facts about the degradation of the security situation in the region. I think now it's going too quickly. Can you just, okay. As you can see in these slides, Burkina Faso, since last year, based on the figure of terrorist activity in the world, just number one in the world in terms of countries that are the most affected by terrorist activities. And you can see Mali in the third position and Niger. And you will have actually Nigeria also among the first 10 countries in the world the most affected by terrorist activity. I'm only talking about this form of violence, but of course you also have other form of violence and insecurity. But I think this gives clear indication of the fact that in West Africa and Sahel in particular is in a very difficult situation. And as we can see from the next slide, the number of victims of violence and the civilian victims in particular has been increasing in the last few years quite significantly, especially in Burkina Faso, with the kind of the collapse of security in a very small number of years. Next slide, please. So you can see just from this that 23% of the death from terrorism in the world happened in Burkina Faso based on the figure of 2023. These are data coming from the Global Terrorism Report from 2024, which was published just a few months ago in January. And yeah, from this you can see very clearly the rise in violence targeting civilians in particular. And you can see Burkina Faso and Mali with a very significant increase from 2018 to now. A very significant, very steep increase in the terror deaths in these two countries in particular, but also the situation in Niger remains of concern. For me, this is the most significant one because you can see over a decade how the situation has deteriorated. When you look at Burkina Faso, especially in 2011, there was basically no terrorism activity in this country, and you can see how significantly the rank of Burkina Faso has changed over the last few years to become the number one in the world, as I said before, in terms of victims of terrorism. And you can see again the evolution of Mali as well, and the evolution of Nigeria, which is quite stable, being affected by terrorism. For more than a decade now. It was already among the 10 most affected countries in the world in 2011, and it is still among these 10 countries most affected by terrorism in the world now. Yeah, generally, I think we can characterize the situation in the Sahel as a kind of unfortunate encounter between states and nations in construction. Let's not forget that we are talking about countries that were independent in 1960, as a lot of countries on the continent, especially the ones who were colonized by France. So these are still young nations in the current borders and trying to build both states and nations, given the internal diversity of African countries generally, which applies also to the countries of the Sahel and West Africa. So an unfortunate encounter between these states, still fragile in constructions, and external influences as carried by globalization. Globalization means opportunities, of course, but it also means a lot of threats, circulation of ideas, including extremist ideas, for example, in terms of religious identity and views, but also circulation of drugs, circulation of weapons, circulation of money, of course. And this has had a very significant impact on the instability in the Sahel. The economic crisis in the 80s and 90s has led to a lot of austerity measures that reduce the capacity of the state to deliver public policies. And when you have this kind of situation, you have countries that were trying to build a nation, to try to build their states that faced severe economic problems, and then you have a reduction of the state capabilities, and these are significantly affected, for example, the budgets that were allocated to education and also security in a number of countries. A few things maybe about the perceptions of democracy and different kind of governments by the population in Sahel countries. If you look at this survey by Afrobarometer, which is a reputable organization on the continent doing surveys of public opinion in many countries of the continent. You can see, the result from Mali in 2022. When people were asked, I'm sorry, this is the slide, the table is in French, but when people were asked about, what kind of government do they prefer, you will see that 38%, more than 38% of the population would say that democracy is the most preferred form of government. You have 35% of the population who said that in certain circumstances, a non-democratic government can be preferred. And I think that gives, again, an indication about the level of support to democracy, but also the kind of dissatisfaction and doubts about the possibility for democratic government to deliver to the people. We'll see kind of the same kind of result for Niger. I'm waiting for the slide to come, but this is still Mali that you can see on the screen. But let's jump to Niger. The same question in Niger asked by Afrobarometer. If people were asked about democracy, if it is the preferred form of government, you will see that actually 61%, more than 61% of the population said that democracy was the preferred form of government. But at the same time, when they were asked about, the dilemma that can exist between having an efficient government which is non-democratic with no accountability to the people, and the choice for a government that can be accountable, democratic one, involving maybe a slower decision-making process, you will see the results, which is here. 25% of the population in Niger would say that they think that it is more important to keep the government accountable. So it's not very, it's not very strong results. You will see 33% of the population who actually said that it is more important to have an efficient government, even if the people has no say in how the government works. So you can see quite unclear support for democracy, and again, doubts about the possibility for democratic government to be quick in delivering results to the people. So it's not really a surprise to see in these countries a significant support for military coup and for the possibility to have military government, even if, again, you still have the impression that people might accept military coup and military regime, but they do know that this can be a transitional form of government, that they still support the idea of having a democratic government and the possibility for the people to have a say into the way the country are governed. A few insights from an article that I found very interesting, a very recent one from a professor in Burkina Faso, Abdul Karim Saidou, who is also a friend of mine, who wrote a paper to just show how difficult it can be to preserve democracy when you have a very high level of insecurity, taking the example of Mali and Burkina Faso. Next slide, please. I think the key argument is to say that democracy is not incompatible with a high level of insecurity. And actually, if you have a functional democracy, you have a possibility to manage insecurity without, abandoning the principle of democratic government. Actually, democracy is equipped to regulate exceptional situations through instruments such as the state of emergency. And the cumulative effect of electoral, deliberative, and participatory aspect of democracy also produce a stabilizing dynamic. Election can boost public debate and political parties' programmatic thinking on security. So these are kind of the reason why you still can have a democratic government even in time of insecurity. But at the same time, his argument is to say that challenges are specific specifically important when you have a very high level of insecurity in the countries which are not fully democratic, which are young democracies. So I need to be quick, given that we lost a number of minutes before starting this presentation. So I think the main argument here is to say that when you have a level of insecurity that you have in a country like Mali and Burkina Faso, of course, it offers the possibility for military officers to present themselves as being the one able to respond to the insecurity. And that's exactly what we observed in Mali and Burkina Faso. Because of the failure of civilian government, even if it was an elected government, like especially in the case of Burkina Faso, it was clearly unable to provide the security responses to the threats, and people were accepting the idea that maybe a military ruler can be the one providing an appropriate responses and saving the country from total collapse in terms of security. So when you have a very high level of insecurity, you have kind of an argument which is ready for some military officers to seize power and to have some level of support from the public opinion. So his conclusion is that there is no absolute incompatibility between democracy and security, but security challenges are opening up a new chapter in the trajectory of Sahel states, and I will end, in a few minutes with that and the prospect for the Sahel countries, which are, I think, still very difficult. It's difficult to be optimistic about the short and mid-term in terms of the restoration of democratic order in these countries, especially given the level of insecurity and the fact that you have an history of civilian government which were unable to respond to the security needs, but also to respond more generally to economic and social needs of the population. A few words about Senegal's recent presidential election. Of course, very different situation from the one in Sahel, and I would say a ray of hope for democracy in West Africa more generally, given the current situation in many countries where you have clearly a democratic backsliding in the last few years. We now have a president in Senegal who was elected a few weeks ago, and the Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, who were both in detention 10 days before election day. So it's a very exceptional situation where that we have in Senegal after 3 years of political tensions and demonstrations and clear signs by former President Macky Sall that he wanted to stick to power. What happened, I think, is a powerful precedent which gives a signal that rules and institutions are important and that the will of the people through election need to be respected. And it's actually the will of the Senegalese citizen was to put an end to the political tensions through election by deciding themselves about the kind of political change that they want. I think the main thing with the election in Senegal is that it was the people, the people of the country themselves, which mobilized against the intention of President Macky Sall to seek a third mandate and then change the calculations and the decision of former President Macky Sall. It was also the mobilization of the civil society, which put pressure on to have a respect of the date of the election and to counter the will to postpone the election. And I do believe that the pressure of the civil society also influences the decision of the Constitutional Court in the country to make sure that the date of the election is respected. In terms of concluding remarks, I think the key message is that we need to take into account the diversity of political trajectories in West Africa. If you look at Senegal, you look at what is happening in the Sahel countries, you can definitely see very significant differences in the political trajectories of these countries and differences in the current situation in terms of the support for democracy and different situation in terms of the prospect that we can imagine for the next few years in terms of preservation of democracy or restoration of democracy. The other message is that I think we need to connect discussion and debate about the future of democracy in the region with a discussion about efficient states. We need both efficient states in West Africa and the continent and democratic states. And I think it is important for us to still work on the kind of political institution that can both advance the objective of consolidating democracy and also consolidate the capacity of the state to deliver security, to deliver social and economic progress. Unfortunately, the very last slide was about the fact that the New York Times a few months ago published an article with the title, "The World is Becoming More African." I think it is very important. It was about the demography of the continent, but it was also about the influence, the cultural influence, the soft power of the African continent. And I do believe that the fact that you are having now Burna Boy, Rima, Tyler winning the Grammy Awards, I'm sure that you will be dancing very soon on these African music. I think it tells a lot about the possibility for the African continent to actually be the continent of the future, but we need to be realistic about the current situation and the intensity of the challenges that we have, including those that are posed by the demography that we have on the continent. It will be tough, but we need to be confident in the possibility for the African living the continent, but also for the diaspora, including you, especially the African students in the US and everywhere in the world, to contribute to a better future for the continent. So I will end here, and again, very sorry that I could not share all the views that I intended to share with you, and thank you again for the invitation to this Africa Day celebration.
Yes.
Thank you, Doc, for the presentation. At this moment in time, we'll open the floor for questions. Because of time, we are only going to take 4 questions.
Thank you, Professor, for your. My question is I very carefully read your slides, and the geography of the Sahel. You said it is the key security issue is terrorism, but strangely, Senegal is not in the countries that is affected by terrorism. Senegal is part of the Sahel. So, what is the secret sauce that Senegal has to shield itself from terrorism that is not sharing with the rest of the countries of the Sahel?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Senegal is part of the Sahel, but when you look at the map, you can see that it's also a coastal country. And I think there is this very simple issue about geography. If you look at countries like Benin and Togo, for example, it's not because of internal situation that they are exposed to terrorist activity now. It is because of the proximity with Burkina Faso, which has a number of armed groups which are basically controlling the border of Burkina Faso, between Burkina Faso and Benin, for example. So one of the luck of the Senegal is just not to have armed groups on the other side of the border with Mali, for example. As you know, Senegal has a border with Mali, but if you look at the location of armed groups in Mali, you will see them in northern part, in the center, and in other areas, but not very close to the border with Senegal. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason, I think, for the stability of Senegal and also the fact that it's not facing security problem as other countries in the region is what I used to call the pillars of the stability of Senegal. One of the pillars is really the quality of the security institutions, because from Senghor time, from the first president in Senegal, there was a clear understanding of the need to build an efficient administration and also to build training institutions for security and military that I think has been able to keep the quality of the training, including in terms of the ethical conduct of the military forces. And I do believe that one of the strong pillars of Senegal, including for the democratic outcome that we had a few weeks ago, was the fact that Senegal has quite competent and well-educated military leadership and security leadership more generally. So that also gives a signal, I think, to armed groups that you have a state which can react, which can which has a level of equipment and also a level of training that can make it effective in countering terrorist activity. But that said, I think we need to be cautious. Of course, the region is still very vulnerable, and Senegal has to remain vigilant about the situation in the border areas, especially with Mali.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, my name is Dr. Damola, and I have two questions. The first question is about the democratic restoration in Senegal. We have given Senegal a lot of applaud for the handing over, but we all know that the former president wanted to alter the constitution, and if he had succeeded, Senegal will have joined the train of presidents that are like staying beyond the term. What saved the situation is the demonstration and agitation of the citizen, and that is where my question is. Is it part of political, is it right as scholars to encourage political agitation, demonstration, confrontation, and resistance by the populace? Because unless those confrontational steps were taken in Senegal, the president would have had his way, and the story wouldn't have been the way what we are saying now. I think, is it 2 years ago that we have a mass protest in Nigeria, the youths, but government responded with shooting and scattered the youth, and I'm not even sure that their request was granted. However, if the populace have political orientation of confrontation and resistance, I'm sure they will have pushed for that. I also want to ask, could it be that the military takeover in Mali and other parts of the Sahel is what informed Senegal for retreating? Could it be? Then lastly, you mentioned about Mali, the study that was done at the beginning, that many of the populace, they don't really care if it is military. All they want is effective governance. What is the hope of countries that are going through insecurity? Because in many parts of West Africa, we have insecurity problem, and governments have not been able to respond effectively. Like in Nigeria, it has been negotiation, and the Boko Haram are penetrating. Is there any hope? Is that not a threat to democracy? Thank you.
Yeah,
you can
thank
respond
you.
now?
Yeah.
I'm saying you can respond.
Okay, thank you. No, thank you very much. Very interesting question and difficult ones, especially the last one about the hopes in the Sahel, and I will start with that one. Again, it is when one knows the situation currently in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and in Niger, it is really difficult to be optimistic about the next few months. The level of uncertainty is very high. One cannot exclude overcoups happening in these countries. Just because you are observing, for example, in Mali and Burkina Faso, further restriction of political activities and civic space, and you are seeing that even the military government are progressively losing the support that they can have from the society, because people are beginning to see that they are not actually providing a better security response than previous government, and also that the isolation policy and the fact that they have very difficult relationship with some of their partners also led to difficult economic and social conditions. But that said, again, as I said before, I think we cannot only talk about democracy in Sahel countries. We need to understand that the security responses has also to be effective, and that for some time the military officers who are there, they are not going to disappear. So the challenge is to be able to keep dialogue with them and to make sure that, they, at one point, they understand that they need the support and the participation of political and civil society actors to be able to find a solution. The military solution cannot be the ultimate solution to the serious multidimensional crisis that these countries have. But again, I don't expect restoration of democracy in the next few months or even maybe in the next 2 or 3 years in these three Sahel countries, just because of the current situation and the fact that the civilian political leaders have lost a lot of credibility. So that what I used to say about the comparison with Senegal is that, in Senegal you have an alternative, you have Ousmane Sonko and the party which won the election has the possibility to have a political change without turning to the military. In Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso, the perception is that actually you have no political, civilian political alternative for now. And that, of course, opened the way for military rulers to stay. What I would see, possibly, especially in Mali, is that at one point, the colonel will decide that it's time to go to the election because it would be difficult to have a 10 years military transition, but they will go to the election, but will make sure that they keep power as civilian leaders after basically changing their, how to say that, their uniforms. But we need to remain mobilized for these countries because it's not only Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso stability which is at stake. It is the entire West African region which will remain in danger if we don't see a progress in the stabilization of the Sahel countries and if we don't protect the regional integration. As you know, ECOWAS is in a very difficult situation right now. On the question about Senegal and you are very right in, we should not forget about all the actions that we observed in the last 3 years. We should not forget about the fact that, yes, we could have had a very different outcome from the political crisis in Senegal. Macky Sall could have, been able to remain in power without mobilization of the population. That's why the key lesson from me from Senegal is that it is only the citizen who can actually protect the democracy, protect the rule of law, protect the institution and the political system that they want for their countries. But for that, you still need the other pillars that I mentioned. And I think what is lacking in Nigeria, for example, is also what I said about the security forces and the reaction in Senegal. There were some people who were killed during the demonstration in Senegal, but the thresholds of violence that is acceptable in Senegal in this kind of protest, I think is quite low, lower than in Nigeria or in other countries. What I mean is that even the military leadership in Senegal would not accept Macky Sall to lead a repression with hundreds of people killed. That would have led to military leadership basically asking the president to leave without even making a coup. That's why, again, I think that you have some invisible forces like the military who play a very strong role in protecting democracy when they understand that their role is actually not to just follow the president when he wants to stay to power, but they understand they need to protect the country's stability and the reputation of the country. And one additional thing about Senegal is that most of the officers and civilian actors in Senegal, they want the political change and they want it to be peaceful. They don't want to create conditions that could have led to military to actually take power. And I think these are the kind of things that we should be working, to have in many other countries to strengthen the pillars of democratic societies. It has to do with education. It has to do with the capacity to mobilize efficiently and without resorting to violence and giving pretext for security forces to act forcefully.
Once again, thank you, Dr. Yabi, for your presentation and for your responses. And thank you everyone for your active participation. At this point in time, there's a popular saying that every good thing comes to an end. And on this note, I want to introduce and to give this opportunity to Professor Edozie to give concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not the end. It's only 6:30. Don't party poop. We're going to be here until 8. We're just transitioning into a different module, of the conference, which is cultural activities and dance, Afrobeat, and more food. However, I do want to close the speaking part of this conference, and in doing so, I would like to invite Dr. Idika Kalu and maybe Professor Nada Ali, Amadou, Dominique if he's still around, and Professor Kamara. We're going to do this the African way. Please come up, Professor Kamara. Is he there? Or is he on the phone? Professor Bodumi Banwo, is he still here? Okay. Yes, please, come up. Professor Jack. Madhu, come on. Is Dr. Cecilia still here? Where are the gifts then? Okay. Lillian, please. Yeah, no, come up in African way, because we're going to take pictures as well. So, yes, let me transition the conference and thank everyone. This has been, in my view, what a brilliant conference. I've learned so much myself, going from panel to panel. We had a wealth of expertise. From the keynote speakers in the morning, the luncheon keynote speaker, the evening keynote speaker, the panels were all full and enriching in conversations. So we're going to capture, this brilliant intellectual exchange in a post-conference publication. So I'm going to be emailing all the panelists and asking you for your papers, okay? I know we did presentations today, including myself, but you really have to get down and write. But, really thank you. I think this has been wonderful. I want to thank all of you who have attended. I gave my acknowledgement speech earlier on so that, I could get my thank yous into everyone while they were here. So I won't reiterate that. I do want you to take a look at the booklet. The booklet is very comprehensive. It has bios. It has, a very detailed organization of the program. So first, I want to have you go to a page in the program that is, we don't have page numbers, but there's that page. Can you hold this for me? Which one? Okay, so it's a page near the end, very last page, near the end, if we could just go there. And I'd like to go to that page to acknowledge, thank our gifter. Now she's our gifter, not just our keynote speaker, but Ambassador Kinza Jawara Njai has, as I said in the morning, donated her honorarium and her travel expenses and turned it and repurposed it as a scholarship. So I would like to invite the 2 scholarship recipients. And the first one is Rebecca Yemo. Rebecca Yemo, please come up. We don't have your awards yet because you're not graduating until next month, and so we have to do some paperwork. But we are really excited about almost Dr. Rebecca Yemo. On behalf of the faculty and students of the Africa Scholars Forum, we'd really like to congratulate you. Being a recipient of this $1,000 ECOWAS Democracy Ambassador Njai Award is very significant. Your $1,000, we hope, will help you to, choose a career, in the continent. It doesn't have to be inside the continent. I'm not sending you back home. I know she doesn't want to go. But you will contribute to the continent's advancement of especially democracy. Your research on human rights in Africa is fascinating. I'm sure you can talk about it a little bit yourself. Maybe you could just tell us your title and, and stuff like that. Title of your dissertation.
Okay, so my able committee member Nada is saying everyone already knows my title. So my research is titled Advancing Women's Rights in Sub-Saharan Africa, the Role of the UN Universal Periodic Review. So essentially, the long, complicated title, what I was trying to do was to examine how a UN human rights monitoring mechanism, known as the Universal Periodic Review, has potentially contributed to advancing women's rights in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's what my research looked at. And on the good side, I found that it has indeed had some impact in terms of how states are implementing the recommendations that stem from the process. And to some extent, it has resulted in improved women's rights outcomes, specifically when it comes to women's literacy rates in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's what it's about. And thank you. I'm really honored to be given this award.
Congratulations again. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Yes, thank you. Now we'll call up the second recipient is Mr. Dennis Juko. He will soon be Dr. Dennis Juko as well. Now, he is not West African. He is East African. He's actually Ugandan, and his dissertation topic is on Uganda. However, we gave him the award because we, even though it's an ECOWAS Democracy Award, we really acknowledged your research on transnational justice and restorative justice mechanisms in Uganda, a fascinating dissertation study as well. And you were able to show us how this $1,000 award will, take you also back to the continent to contribute to the advancement of democratic institutions through justice. You want to talk a little bit about your...
Thank you so much, Professor Dozie, and thank you so much, Ambassador, for this honor. And of course, my research is on transnational justice, as Professor Dozie has indicated, and actually she was the lead advisor on that dissertation project. My project is titled Engaging Survivors in Transnational Justice Governance, and I'm looking at the international, or what I call the global, transnational justice processes, but also the national processes and the local community processes implemented in the aftermath of the Lord's Resistance Army insurgency in northern Uganda. And on this, I'm searching for the place of survivors in the governance of these transnational justice mechanisms, because survivors are often the most forgotten component of the transnational justice or the transitional justice frameworks that are implemented in the aftermath of conflict. And so I was interested in studying their agency and what their contributions are in the governance of transnational justice. So thank you so much. Thank you, and I hope to use this award to further contribute more scholarly pieces to my small library, but also push the frontiers of transnational justice governance beyond the dominant neoliberal approaches to bringing the voices of the survivors, championing the bottom-up approaches.
Okay, Dennis, the dissertation is in 3 weeks, okay? Not tonight. But thank you. No, congratulations. Congratulations, Dennis Juko as well. Thank you. Thank you for that. Round of applause. Okay. So now we'd like to call up the ambassador to, show our, really our appreciation for your attending this event, your gift to us, and just the graciousness of your engagement, with us at UMass Boston these past day and a half. So please come up. We would like to take pictures as well, and we have something for you. Yeah, we can have the pink one. That's a nicer color. Okay. We are a public university. We don't have a lot of resources. We wish we could have given you, a bigger gift, but, we came up with, this token of appreciation for your contribution with us. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the faculty as well and the graduate students. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just by having me here today. Oh, come on. Thank you. Thank you. Recipients of the scholarship to join us? In a picture? Yes. Can we have the recipients of the scholarship come back up, Rebecca and Dennis, to take a quick picture with the ambassador and the faculty? All right. Dennis on this side, and all come. You got all of us? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now we have one more gift. We had another keynote. Absolutely. Ms. Oge Onubogu, the Wilson Center, the Woodrow Wilson Center director of the Africa program. I was talking with her earlier and saying that I'm really so proud of, my sisters, and I use the word sister figuratively and symbolically to signify, African women who are leading U.S. organizations. Really, proud of her for being, such a, fine leader of Africa programming at the Woodrow Wilson Center. You should check out her organization, check out her LinkedIn, and all the activities that she's doing on behalf of this very topic of democratic backsliding in Africa, hosting Macky Sall himself, the new president coming in, Faye, he's already inaugurated, but she's hosting all of them, centrally there in DC. So we're really grateful that she found the time to deliver her keynote today with us at UMass Boston and spent the whole day with us, she says, learning herself about a really critical topic. So please, Ms. Onubogu, please come up and accept our modest token of appreciation. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll take a picture. Thank you. Thank you. And is that it? That's for Gilles. Is he still online? Maybe we have to ask. Is Gilles, are you still online? I think he's gone. So with Gilles, we have a token. We're going to mail it by DHL to Dakar and give that to him. If he isn't online, we just want to say thank you as well, Gilles. For him, it's about 10:30, 11:30 p.m. Are you off to Senegal, your other home? It's about 10:30 over there, so if he's gone to bed, we will understand. But we also wanted to accept our appreciation for Gilles Yabi's presentation and contributions to this conference. So thank you as well. Thank you all. Now I'm going to close. I do want to thank the faculty up here, Professor Ali, Amadou Jallo, who is our Africa Scholars Forum staff member as a program assistant. Professor Eljak, is a professor of women's studies and sexuality, associate professor. Professor Nadia Ali is a lecturer, senior lecturer in the same department. Professor Kamara was here from the beginning, a founder of the Africa Scholars Forum, a professor of Africana Studies. We've done a lot of collaborations with Africana Studies. Very proud of Professor Kamara and his contribution, his persistence and persistent support of the African Studies Forum. In terms of contributions. So thank you, Professor Kamara. And Dominic Ofai, our staff member, our student staff member in the Africa Scholars Forum. He's a first-year student, so this is his second semester. You've done a hell of a job. Great job, Dominic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Don't leave. We've got Afrobeat DJ here, more food. Lots of space to dance and continued networking and discussing the important issues of the day. I want to thank everyone again, the moderators, the organizers, the volunteers, Gifty and Charlotte. Thank you so much for making this day so successful. It's not over tonight, nor is it over intellectually. We are going to have a post-conference publication on this issue. In a year's time, I bet you it's going to be out. Okay, so thank you again. Thank you.